start recording. And everybody there in virtual land, I hope you guys are doing okay. All right, so just a real quick overview of the next couple weeks. Can you believe it? This week we're finishing Module 4, so today and Thursday we'll finish up about instructional strategies and working with. The one thing you're going to see, all these instructional strategies work great with kids on the autism spectrum and kids with intellectual disabilities, but they also work great for everybody, so it can be implemented for everybody. Next week, we'll begin Module 5, which is the lower incidence disabilities. These are all physical and visual, sensory things and very significant disabilities. We begin Module 4 test this Friday, and it goes for the next week. Remember how that works. Then the week of the 22nd through the 28th, that's going to be the crazy week, right? Because we'll have class on Tuesday, but we won't have any class anymore face-to-face. We'll be all online. So Wednesday on is Thanksgiving break. So we won't meet back in class until virtually December 1st. Okay? And I think that's the last week before finals, is it not? Because finals is the following week. So we'll finish up that whole process by that Friday. What I'll do is the thing on virtually, we'll start talking about what the final will look like and how it'll be addressed. And it's a case-based final. And I've got it, there's a question or two in this test that will address how that looks. So it's not going to be real difficult. It just you need to know the process. Then we're finished until on the 3rd will be our last official class virtually, and then it's the final, and I'll just let you know when the final needs to be uploaded by. Okay, any questions? Crazy that it's almost here, isn't it? And it's just been chaotic for everybody, I think. So there you go. All right, so today we're going to look at understanding and using task analysis. This is what we do as teachers. Because we have a specific object to teach. Like today we're teaching task analysis. And that is a complex process. And complex processes are made up of putting together small, discrete behaviors, and when you put those behaviors together, you got a complex process. For example, the old Chinese saying of a journey of 1,000,000 miles begins by one step. That one step is a discrete process. And from that point forward, however many steps it takes to get to do the 1,000,000 miles, those are chained together, individual, discrete behaviors to make that journey happen. So we're going to understand task analysis. When we look at a topic, we need to know what are the prerequisite skills for that person, and do they have the skill necessary to accomplish the prerequisite skills in order to obtain knowledge of the topic we're teaching. That's what teachers do. We always look underlying, are they ready for subtraction? They have to learn addition first, right? So before you do addition, you have to know values of numbers. Before you know values of numbers, you have to know what the numbers mean. So you see, those are all prerequisite skills. So let's look at this piece and see. The definition of task analysis is it's a process of breaking complex skills down into smaller, discrete skills. When I mean a discrete skill, it has a very determined beginning and end. Okay? So, for example, pushing the clicker. The first thing I have to do is find it. That's a discrete skill. You look for you begin it looking, and then you find it by picking it up. And then you have to know what it means. An arrow to the left means to go back, like that. An arrow to the right means to go forward, like that. The arrow at the top is a little laser pointer, which don't work on screens like this, by the way. I can point that all day long, it'll never show up. It's hard, it's weird. So I can point down below, but can't point up there. And then there's a button on the bottom which pauses it. See, it pauses it. So that's I'm oriented to this. So that's a discrete, each of those are discrete skills. When you put them together, then you're using the clicker. Make sense? Okay. Once a task analysis is complete, it can be used to teach learners a skill that is complex or challenging to teach all at one time. So you teach the discrete skills separate, and then you go back and you teach and you chain them together to create the complex skill. There are other practices such as discrete trial training that can be used, video modeling, watching somebody on a video screen do an activity, and reinforcement can be used to teach individual components. These are just strategies to teach those individual components of the challenging skill, and they build upon one another until the skill is complete and you move on. So that is the definition of task analysis. It comes from the field of applied behavior analysis, or behaviorism. My theoretical framework is kind of unique. It's a thrown together thing. I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. The way I teach is cognitive behaviorally, but I also use constructivism. So Vygotsky and the others with constructivism. The behaviorism is the direct teaching approach, which we all need to be very aware of, and especially kids that have trouble with organizing, planning, and carrying out a plan. Kids like ADHD, kids with learning disabilities, kids with emotional disturbance, kids with intellectual disabilities, kids on the autism spectrum. That's the majority of the kids with disabilities that you will have in your classes. You know that. Because they are included. But it can be used for everybody. So universal design is very important here. So this is the definition of task analysis. I am recording this. Okay. Just want to make sure that we're recording, guys. All right. Here is the steps for implementation. Step 1. You identify the target skill. So you need to know what is the target skill that you're going to teach. Now remember, our academic skills, remember I'm a behaviorist, okay? So our academic skills, a behavioral skill. Think about it. What is a behavior? Remember, let's go back to emotional behavior disorders when we talked about it. A behavior is anything that you can observe a student doing. Not their thoughts, not their emotions, but what they're doing. So is an academic skill a behavior? Yes, because you can observe them doing it, right? You can observe them reading, you can observe them doing math, you can observe them writing. It is a behavior. So for you're going to get other people arguing about this all the time. But in this class, an academic skill is a behavior. Can a dead man do academic skills? No. If a dead man can't do it, it's not a behavior. Wait, let me say that right. If a dead man can do it, it's not a behavior. If a dead man can't do it, then it is a behavior. Okay? Because you can observe them doing it. A dead man can lay on the floor, that's not a behavior, laying on the floor. But turning over while laying on the floor is a behavior, right? Throwing a temper tantrum while they're laying on the floor is a behavior, right? Because a dead man can't do it. All right, so step one, you've got to identify the target still. You need to use either the student's individual education plan, the TEKS, which is you base your lesson plans from. Teachers or practitioners should then identify the skill that the learner needs to acquire. The target skill should consist of a series of chain discrete steps. A single discrete skill is not appropriate. It's too narrow. You need to think of a target skill as a broad piece, as the complex skill. For example, if we're teaching life skills, could purchasing something from a snack machine be a life skill? That would be an appropriate target skill. Okay? Make sense? So, and it can be too complex, so we need to be more thoughtful. So let's look at some examples. Example one, too simple. Turning on the sink faucet. That is a discrete skill, correct? Let's look at washing dishes. Washing dishes is the target skill. But you have to have the discrete skill of turning on the faucet, correct? First. And then too complex would be preparing, serving, cleaning up after dinner. See, it's multiple steps, etc. But that's something you can get there by chaining together target skills, and eventually you'll get there, correct? So see, we're wanting to narrow the idea down, but not be so broad, but at the same time, not be too narrow. Look at number two. Does this make sense? Too simple? If you say your goal is to push the on button on the computer, is that too simple? Could be. Logging onto the computer and starting a familiar program. So getting a student up and running on something, that would be like we do every morning. You get up and you go to D2L and see what's going on. Your life, what you got to do in life today. Too complex, logging onto the computer and creating a personal web page. Done that before. So those are examples. So we'll be doing that later in the activity at the end of class today, near the end of class today. So, okay. Step two. You need to identify the prerequisite skills of a learner and the materials needed to teach that task. So for example, turning on the computer, logging onto the computer, what are some prerequisite skills? Do you need to know what the on button looks like? So yeah, you need to know that, know it works, turns on the computer. You need to know how to work the mouse. Correct? How to access your username and password, how to type that information in, and then to hit return or use the mouse to click on submit, correct? That would be, those are prerequisite skills necessary. Each of those are unique, discrete skills. They're prerequisites that need to go together to make that long chain complex skill. Now, are you starting to think, okay, academics, writing a sentence, these are prerequisite skills for writing a sentence. What are they? If you're using pencil and paper, what are prerequisite skills? Go ahead.
The letters look like how to write down words.
Okay, so they need to know the letters and how to make those wrappings in there, and the writing skill of that. Holding a pencil could be one. Then it is how the letters go together to make words is a prerequisite skill. All of that together are prerequisite skills. You might have to teach some of those prerequisite skills to get them to the target behavior, but that is what we're talking about. And that's through when you evaluate the student's progress, then you know what they need. Step 3, teachers and other practitioners need to break down the skill, the target skill, into the steps so that a learner can successfully demonstrate the skill by following the steps. This is really important. You guys need to break it down and give them the steps necessary to complete it. If you don't give it to them in a clear manner, are they going to be able to follow it correctly? Yes, no, maybe so? And you can do it by recording yourself doing the activity and talking it through using your self-talk. Complete the activity with them. That's ways. But you need to confirm that each component consists of a discrete skill. So that's very important. For example, brushing your teeth. This is the task analysis of brushing your teeth. Look through this. Look at it for a minute. What do you guys think? Are all those discrete skills that are chained together to create the complex skill of brushing your teeth? What you can do with this too is if a student's having a difficulty, you can create a visual process, a visual schedule of this activity and show them how it looks. And that works for some kids, like kids with intellectual disabilities, kids on the autism spectrum, etc. You can do that. That works really, really well. So we're going to watch a video real quick on, if it comes up, where they're at. I had trouble with this week. Well, that's kind of frustrating. All right, here we go.
Big bite. Let's just,
You're not making any sense. Sorry, you ruined it on purpose. He knows how to make one.
looks up the internet. You know what? I'm hungry. I could really go for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Do you guys think you can write down some instructions and teach me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Yeah.
Then do it.
I knew we were gonna do this. I heard Dad talking to Mom.
Don't choke yourself on my hand. Sometimes they do what you tell them.
Dad, I'm done.
Step 1, get 2 pieces of bread out. Got 'em. Get a butter knife and get some PB. Take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
No, Dad, with the peanut butter.
I'm just doing what it says. It says take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
Hold on.
Get some jelly, rub it on the other half of the bread.
No, Dad, open the jelly.
It doesn't say to do that. Put the breads together on top of each other. Take a big bite. Let's do it as like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Fail.
Sorry, I had to make it extremely specific.
Oh, good. I'm starving. Take 2 pieces of white bread out of the bag. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop a bit of peanut butter out of
That means like a lot.
A bit means a lot.
In my world.
Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto 1 of your pieces of bread with a knife. All right. There we go.
Doing better than before, though.
Open the jelly jar. Squeeze it onto the other piece of bread.
No.
Done. Closer. Get 2 pieces of bread. Get some peanut butter. Take the peanut butter knife. Open the peanut butter. Put the knife in the PB. Get some jelly. Open the jelly.
No.
Squirt the jelly onto the bread. Take the butter knife with the peanut butter on it. Wipe it all over the piece of bread that's blank. Take the butter knife, rub the jelly all over the piece of bread.
Oh, you're doing better. Oh.
That's all over. Put the 2 pieces on top of each other.
This isn't how I meant.
Take 2 pieces of white bread out of the bag. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop some of the peanut butter out of the inside of the jar. Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto 1 of your pieces of bread with a knife.
No.
Squeeze some jelly onto the other piece of bread. Spread the jelly on the bread with the butter knife. Put your 2 pieces of bread, peanut butter and jelly sides together. Done. Get 2 pieces of bread. Get some peanut butter. Get some jelly in the peanut butter. Get a butter knife. Put the butter knife in the peanut butter. Take the butter knife out of the peanut butter.
You did it wrong. No.
Take 1 piece of bread and take the butter knife that has the peanut butter on it, spread it all over the top of the piece of bread. That's the top.
I mean the sides.
Squirt some on another piece of bread. Take the butter knife, rub it all over the top of the piece of bread.
I quit. You're not making any sense. Sorry, you ruined it on purpose. He knows how to make one.
I know, Evan, it's the joke. It's the game that we're playing. Oh.
Do you know how to eat a piece of bread? You want to take your sandwich with you? That's what it's like, you have a sandwich. I'm glad I made that for you. Yeah, go take that one to mommy.
I edited a bit.
Take 2 pieces of white bread, take the lid off the jar of peanut butter, get a butter knife and stick it inside the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop some of the peanut butter out of the inside of the jar. Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto the face of one of your pieces of bread with a knife. Squeeze some jelly onto the other piece of bread. Spread the jelly on the bread with the butter knife. Put your 2 pieces of bread, peanut butter and jelly sides together. Done.
Now eat it.
Not the best,
Well, you made it.
but
so-
I think it qualifies. That's a win.
Woo!
Well, Evan and John, did that go as you expected?
Yes, I expected to win.
Well, you sort of won. But really, I feel like we were all losers. You guys have fun at all?
Yeah,
There were at least a few points where it seemed like Evan was kind of having fun.
he's like,
If there is something you would like to see it.
Okay, so, you guys that's online, what I'd like you to do is, go into the chat and write in the chat what you guys learned from this. You guys here, let's talk with your, appropriate socially distanced neighbors about what did you learn from this video that you can take forward into your classroom. And you guys online do the same thing, but do it in the chat, okay?
You don't have to do like this. The even kids can make. I was thinking there was a little bit more complex, but they're able to do it with a little bit of and then there's a lot of different ways on how to hold something like the top of your bread.
Okay, so let's share. What did you guys say? And then we'll read some from your classmates that in the virtual world. What'd you learn from the video? That's the biggie. You can't assume anything. You gotta. So this is where assessment comes in, right? If you want to see if a student can do something, there's two types of ways you can do it. You can just give them the materials and watch them, and then let them see how they do that. Or give them an instruction, see if they can do it. If they can't do it, then you document that. And then you teach that skill, that particular skill. So it's always, don't make an assumption, because one of your classmates said universally understood. Well, a lot of times we would understand top of the bread would be the face of the bread, but that might not necessarily be so if the student doesn't understand the over and under and on top of and beside and those words. So you have to know your student. So it goes back to knowing your student and where they are currently functioning so you can address that. What else did you learn? What about how you organize the writing? Do you need to be very specific about that? And make sure that you're following the strategies appropriately. So that's very, very clear. The kids, it's funny, you watch the kids and then the dad dropped the knife into the peanut butter jar with the blade side up, and they kind of started freaking out, right? So that's part of the thing, is that maybe video modeling or modeling the behavior is important so they can see it or have a picture of the behavior. So there's a lot of things that's there. What else? Anything else that you guys learned from that? Well, let's read through what your virtual classmate said. Haley said, I learned how specific we must be when teaching someone how to do a new skill. You have to be, Debbie Bora said, you have to be very specific about the instructions you give. Morgan, when creating steps, they have to be specific and universally understood. And that's very true. You got to teach, make sure they understand that. Carson, there's no such thing as instructions that are over specific. When educating students, the more specific, the better. That's going to be true. Especially in direct instruction. Everybody understands steps differently, so making sure they are detailed and specific are important. That's important to understand their IEP needs. Madeline, that was Zach. Madeline said, teaching someone may seem easy to us, but when teaching someone else how to do something, we have to be specific to make sure they understand it. That's very true. Peyton wrote, be specific about instructions and materials as well as how to use those materials properly. Melanie Castillo said, you have to have patience in order to explain everything thoroughly to make sure every student understands. Very good job, guys. Good job. Okay, let me get out of that. And we'll get back to the So we learned a new critical element in teaching is that we need to be specific and make sure that they understand what is in our head is written on the paper so that they understand it correctly. So that's very important. Step 5 of the process is determining how the skill will be taught. This is where teachers decide how the steps identified in the task analysis will be taught. Are you going to do it modeling? Are you going to do it direct instruction and viewing it? You need to know how the student learns it best. So that's important. So how you're going to teach it, how the student learns it best, and what are the procedures for chaining the behavior? Are you going to use total task chaining, backwards or forwards chaining? And we'll talk about that in just a minute, about chaining. and use evidence-based practices that you will use to teach the skill. Direct instruction is a very solid strategy when teaching a new skill for everyone. Doesn't matter if they have a disability or not. But more specifically for students with disabilities. Direct instruction is very important. Okay. Determining how the skill will be taught, the teacher, you need to know the learner's temperament. Are they easily frustrated? Are they pretty patient? What their learning preferences are? Do they learn stuff visually, tactily, through activity, through reading? What? If there's any IEP, accommodation, or environmental plans, or the RTI plan, we need to make sure that they're utilized. And where they're going to use that skill. If you're going to teach being able to shop, where do you need to take the student to teach that skill? To a store, right? So that they need to be able to generalize that to the store that they're going to do it in, the environment that it's for the function in. Teachers and practitioners present the steps of the task analysis to learners in an age and developmentally appropriate manner. So you don't want to patronize the kids by teaching it like you would if they're 15. You want to teach it like it's a 5-year-old. So you need to be age appropriate. Even if they have intellectual disabilities, you still need to be age appropriate in their instruction. And it must be, what you're doing must be efficient, clearly understood, and does not attract undue attention to the learners. So it's important that they are learning in a very safe environment. Okay, so now we're going to look at chaining and what is the different types of chaining. We use 3 different types. We use forward chaining, backward chaining, and total task chaining. So I've got a video that we're going to watch that I have a gentleman will explain this, and then I'll go a step further.
Chaining is a teaching procedure in which we teach students to join together individual behaviors in order to create a more complex behavior. So what we want to be able to do is to get students to take a bunch of little steps and make something bigger and more complex. For example, we may want to teach students to wash their hands. And that's a series of steps, starting with turning on the water and ending with throwing away the paper towel. But in between would be soap and actually washing and getting a paper towel and drying. And that series of steps can be taught one step at a time to create this complex behavior. So the advantage of doing that is we can create independence and complex behavior. Here's how you do that. There are 2 ways, forward and backward. In a forward chain, the student would do the first step. And they would do that as independently as possible with the teacher watching. And once they completed it, the teacher would deliver reinforcement and then guide them through the rest of the chain. If we went backward, what would happen is the teacher would guide the student through the whole chain, trying to get the student to do the last step as independently as possible and providing reinforcement there. Now on either one of those chains, what you do as the student is successful is you add on. In forward chaining, you keep the student moving forward, providing reinforcement for every time they're successful moving forward. And in backward chaining, you keep adding steps and providing reinforcement after each of those steps the student does correctly, moving backward. what we need to consider is that this requires a task analysis, a fairly detailed task analysis of what it takes step by step to complete that complex task.
Backward chaining, deliver reinforcement after the last step within the chain. Forward chaining, deliver reinforcement after the completion of the step that is being taught.
Tie your shoes.
Great job, Elizabeth. Kaden, let's set the table. Good job, you set the table.
Okay, so that was an example of chaining, forward and backward chaining. So did you see on the first one, the forward chaining, the child did as much as it could with doing the first step, and then she helped him guide him through the last two on the tying the shoes. On the backward, you saw the teacher guiding him completely through and stopped with any of the hand over hand support when it was the glass was the last thing. And so once that was done, she moved and then gave him reinforcement. That's the difference between forward chaining and backward chaining. And it really depends on your kid, which one works better. I tend to be a forward chaining predominant teacher, and then teach the next skill, let them do it independent, then teach the next skill, let them do it independent. That's kind of me. But I've done backward chaining in total task. We'll look at it in just a second. It's a different one. So, okay, let me get back. A total task is you just let them say, here is, you could have done it with it. Let's say that the student was going to do the table. You just let them, you have the jig and all the stuff, and say, see if you can do that all by yourself. And then if they can, then you reinforce that. If not, then you teach each step and say, plate goes on the big circle, the cup goes on the small circle, etc. That's total task. It's doing it all at one time. So, and it really depends on what you're trying to teach is what is better. So you just need to make up that determination. Step 6, implementing intervention and monitoring progress is really important. So you need to prompting and reinforcement, hand over hand is what we tend to do a lot of for life skills, but it's also could be for typing and writing and different things like that. So it just really depends. And then we collect data to see if they've made progress and if they've accomplished that. This works great for kids on the autism spectrum. We do it live and do reinforced skills, but it works great for everyone also. One there, implement the evidence-based practices identified as appropriate to teach the target skill using the steps, etc. And then 2 is follow appropriate data collection to collect the data to make sure. Data is really important. It tells you if you're making progress or not. That's all about progress monitoring. That's curriculum-based measurement. Okay, so we have an activity that we're going to do, and I'm going to break you guys up. You need to log on to the Zoom. There's these computers up here. I forget if it was 4 or 5 breakout groups I was going to put you in. Two, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm gonna break, once you guys get logged on, I'll break you guys up into 5 different groups, and we'll see what group you're in. Okay, I'm gonna create the rooms now. And can you see, is everybody in a room? So in breakout room 1 is Debbie, Josh, and Peyton. In breakout 2, Tim, Carson, Herring, Serena, and Zach. And 3, Madeline, Melanie, Shadell. And 4, Emily, Haley, and Morgan. Over here, okay, so group 1, you're doing introducing yourself. Group 2, you're doing a load of laundry. Group 3, purchasing a drink from a vending machine. Group 4, writing an email to request information. And group 5, writing a 5-sentence paragraph to describe something. So let's go we'll have till 9:15 to work on this. Okay? Are you not in a group? Okay, let me get you in a group. Oh, open all rooms. Hey, Jen, I got, huh? Carson, Solis, Ruth, and Sarah Perez. Okay, Jenna, I'll put you in group 5. Is that okay? Okay. And let's see, Kaylee, let's put you in group 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and put you in group 1 with that group, okay? Is there, and everybody in the rooms? I think so. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at your task analysis. Was that an easy job to do? Somewhat. It depends on what your items you're working on. I think the things like introducing yourself and thinking about different language that you need to use, like is friendly something that you know you can often tell a person that they know how to be friendly? You might need to explain a little bit more. So, but that's good. I was looking at the one that you guys did in group 4, and you might want to rethink the word hit. So, for example, they would say hit return twice. Is it going to hit, or would you rather say press the return button twice? You see, you need to think. You need to know the student you're working with, because that does make a difference. But this is something you could do with anything. In fact, isn't this kind of what you're supposed to do as a teacher? Is do a task analysis, teach the skills necessary to accomplish the task. So on Thursday, we'll be looking at some high leverage practices videos, talking about different strategies to use to do the task analysis pieces with your students to teach these skills, okay? So we'll move into instructional strategies on Thursday. And then I'll also go over the test with you guys on Thursday. So, okay. Any questions before we go? We good? You guys have a great week, and I'll see you guys virtually on Thursday.